Here we go. Okay, so the difference between last section and this section, everybody look up. Confidence interval, TIE fighter, right? We're doing TIE fighter still. For a population mean. This time we do not know sigma. That's the big difference. 6.1 is when we had an estimate of of a population standard deviation, excuse me, from the past, and now we don't. So this is normally what happens. I don't want to say the word normal because you think of bell curve. This is usually what happens. So I would say that it is likely that one of this specific type of question will be one of your free response questions on the test, which you have to use a t-distribution for. So we are going to make a t-chart because you guys like those. And head back. Okay, here we go. First, we're going to verify that sigma is not known. And that it is normal or n is greater than or equal to 30. We're going to assume that the hilarity and quality of our cows is normally distributed, which is why we can do this. All right, so this is in the problem. Number 2, you got to find your sample statistics, n and x bar and s. This is in the problem, or you might need to use your L1 and then one variable stats. Next, you've got to find the degree of freedom. And T sub C. So sigma population is Z sub C, and a sample is T sub C when we don't know. Degree of freedom, the formula for degree of freedom is n minus 1. Do you remember when it's the exact same thing? Do you remember when we were talking about why on sample standard deviation we divide by n minus 1 instead of n? And it's because the outliers are, the weirdest outliers are probably unlikely to be in your sample. So it makes it a little wider with the variation. Same thing. The DF, degree of freedom, is down the side in this chart right here, if you want to pull it up. This one, you actually don't have to do the math. It tells you right off how it is. You see level of confidence across the top. They will only use these 5 levels of confidence, and this is how it looks also. I mean, it doesn't say A18 on it, but it is also how it looks on your AP test. You don't have to figure it out yourself. You see the 1 tail and 2 tails? Ignore that. That is all about hypothesis testing, and that is the next 2 chapters after this. So we'll be going back to this chart repeatedly. Okay, so degree of freedom is n minus 1. To find T sub C, you use page A18. I'm going to go down here. You randomly select 16 coffee shops, and I'm going to start doing the problem at the same time as doing the directions. Okay, so I'm going to do the first 3 steps right now. You randomly select 16 coffee shops. You measure the temperature of the coffee sold at each. The sample mean temperature is 162 degrees Fahrenheit with a sample standard deviation of 10 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so we got a sample mean is 162. Sample standard deviation is 10 degrees. This is going to be 95% confident interval. Our n is 16. It says that it's normal. And it doesn't say that it's a population standard deviation. In general, if it just says standard deviation and doesn't say whether it's population or sample, you assume it's a sample that's related to the sample that you just saw. So number 1 is done. Number 2, we have all of the things we need. So 1 was up here, good enough. 2 is right there. 3, degree of freedom for this one. What's the degree of freedom? 15, n minus 1. And the t sub c. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go to this chart. We're going to go to 15 on the side. And then you're at 95 level of confidence up here. And you go down the list and line them up. And I got 2.131. You get the same thing? Okay. Next, you find the margin of error. Formula for that is E equals T sub C times S divided by the square root of N. So it is almost exactly the same formula, just a T score instead of a Z score, S instead of sigma. Okay. So down here, I'm going to write E equals, and we're typing 2.131 times S, which is 10, divided by the square root of 16. Go ahead and put that in your calculator. What'd you get?
5.3275. Yep.
We'll use 5.3 for right now. What do you think step 5 is? Make the confidence interval. Looks like a TIE fighter. That's what they sound like. I picked up my kids last night, Noah.
Yeah.
And I was like, hi guys. And they're like, why does your throat sound so weird? Were you yelling? And I was like, yes, actually, I was yelling quite a bit the last 10 minutes of practice.
Why did you yell?
If only you were there.
Just 10 minutes of
It really was. Noah has a very long death. We were trying to figure out how to make him scream and die. And I did not realize that there was a whole track meeting about to happen, and there were like 100 parents in the cafeteria waiting, so they all heard me going, like constantly. It was really nice. Really nice. And I walked out there and I was like, oh, there's so many people out here.
Should have walked out the back.
I should have, but I didn't know they were out. I would have walked out the back. Yeah, I should.